Good morning, everybody. The date is February 29th, 2020. We're here in a relatively bright, sunny day in Bellingham, Washington, and I'm here with Skylar Kaster. How you doing today, Skylar?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's rare we get days like this time of year, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. The sun is really nice today.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah, seriously. So I guess I just like to start, know a little bit more about you. Where are you from?
I'm from Indianola, Washington. It's a really tiny little beach town on the Kitsap Peninsula. Most people kind of know it by like the Edmonds ferry terminal. If you take the ferry across over to Kingston, it's like in that area. So I basically grew up running through the woods and being on the beach and just being outside all the time.
So it's a more like rural community?
Definitely, yeah. My graduating class in high school was about 1,000 people, so pretty small. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. So your whole class itself was 1,000?
Actually, I'm sorry. It was I would say actually about 200. The total school was about 1,000. My bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
very,
so much
very
sense.
small.
Like 1,000, that's a lot. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. So okay.
Very
so
small, definitely.
how does that compare to Bellingham for you?
It's definitely, I would say the community still feels pretty like small and intimate, especially within the music community. There's a small music community in Indianola, but definitely not as big as here. So it's definitely a little bit bigger to have like a larger town and have the university be a part of it and everything. Yeah.
Interesting. So there is a music scene where you come from.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. My friend Tracy is here and she is a big part of that. Definitely.
What is it like? What kind of music is being made around there?
I would say at least with the people that I grew up playing with, I grew up going to this it was called the Common House, and it was like a farm community that was just up the street from my house, and we'd have folk jams every Friday. So I grew up like going there and learning how to jam and playing my violin from when I was really little, and like learning how to like watch different musicians do a little solo and like kind of learning how to jam. So I would say I grew up in a folk community, but there's different kinds of music making wherever you go. So, but I would say I'm more a part of the folk community there. Yeah.
Yeah, like the roots, Americana sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. It sounds like you really like kind of, from what you're saying, it sounds like you like learned by ear almost.
I did.
Wow.
Yes, entirely. Yeah.
So did you take formal music lessons like on top of that at any point?
Yes. So I took violin lessons. That was my first instrument from age 5 till 18. So it was a really continuous thing for me. I kind of taught myself guitar and like various other like string instruments like ukulele. But I grew up when I was like really young. My grandma was the one who introduced me to all of that. So she's the one who taught me how to harmonize when I was really little and taught me a little bit of piano and just kind of basic, just kind of hearing music and learning how to sing and stuff like that. So a lot of it was really instinctual and just through ear at the beginning. I had to like learn how to read music and learn how to direct that. Yeah. Which was hard.
Yeah. They're very different worlds, like reading.
Definitely.
Like,
definitely. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Did you feel like, I don't know, is there a style that you prefer? Like, do you prefer to just kind of go more, like, I guess off the cuff, like improvised, or is it nice, like, reading a piece and sort of playing it as it's written? Like, is there?
I would say I have an easier time just kind of going from what I, like, would feel would be best. That's how I do a lot of my solos with the Mariannes. I just do, like, every single one is improvised pretty much. But, they tend to have a repeating pattern, so it's like I kind of know what they're going to be like because we've played those songs a lot of times, so I've just done it a lot. But I don't ever write, like, actual music for those, solos at all. So.
Oh, that's really interesting. So is it kind of like you kind of have, like, a starting, like, phrase or something like that you lead off of or something like that?
With violin, I would say I usually just I just use my ear. I really just listen to like what the pace of the song is and what the mood of the song is and, what the guitar is doing, what the backup stuff is doing and kind of try to play off of that and create something that's how do I say it? It's something that adds a little something extra without completely adhering to the melody, because like that's my job as the violinist, is to kind of add some like another layer. So I try to like bring that into my solos. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you kind of take on a couple different roles within the Mariannes.
Yeah.
Is there a difference to how you approach like songwriting in general? Like when you're writing like the melody, say for like a song that you're singing, how do you approach that differently from when you're writing like a violin solo or something like that?
Well, again, like I said, my role in the Mariannes is more of a backup role, I would say. So I usually try to like base my stuff off of what everybody else is doing in the band to kind of create a more cohesive feel. In terms of my own songwriting, my own melodies, it really depends. I mean, I would say they're definitely different, because I mean, I work off my own writing and my own creative influences for my personal work. Yeah, I don't know. They're definitely different.
That's cool. I mean, it sounds like you take just like a very like naturalistic approach to songwriting. You really just like follow your ear and follow like, especially when you're talking about the group setting, like what really is like appropriate for playing in a band. Would you say that that's how you approach it, kind of?
Like just listening?
Yeah, what is like a more, I don't know, like I said, like a naturalistic sort of approach to the music.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do that with all the music that I do, I suppose. I kind of bring my own influence into it, and a lot of that tends to just be like listening and just going along with it.
That's interesting. One thing, because I also have written songs and things like that, and one thing that I have talked about with other people who do creative things in general is when you're like really in the zone of creation, it's almost like you're not, like, the best way I can put it is that like you're not writing a song, but you're like learning a song.
Yeah.
Do you kind of know what I mean?
I do. I think writing, every song that I write kind of comes in a slightly different process, I would say, but I guess that they all usually come with, I do a lot of writing and like on my own time. So I usually like start writing something and I have a theme, and then I kind of, sometimes the melody arrives with that, or sometimes the melody arrives first, and then I kind of start thinking about words to it. But it definitely like becomes almost a meditative thing when you kind of it starts flowing really well on the words. I usually work with like rhyming, which I'm kind of trying to break out of because it can be really limiting, but it's kind of a bad habit. So then once, the rhyming starts like working in a way that's like interesting and unique, then it really starts to flow super well. And then usually I can do it all at once, which is really crazy to see it all arrive all at once. And that's how a lot of my songs have happened.
That's so interesting. So you find you're usually starting from like the lyrical vocal side of the song and not from the instrumentation?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, it varies sometimes, but I would say it mostly starts with lyrics. Yeah. And then I find something to kind of match that theme or overall emotion that kind of goes with the words that are happening. Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. It sounds like you have a very like creative energy just in general, like as a person.
Yeah.
Because you do more than just music, right?
Yeah. I'm an artist as well. I'm a studio art major currently at Western. Wow. I'm also learning animation right now, which is really exciting for me. That's a huge like personal goal. So I love making things. It's just like so inherent for me, just creating and being like, oh, what's another way I can approach this problem? Like, what's another way that I can solve this? It's just like, you have to think outside the box. And I mean, animation really involves that, and music involves that, and art involves that. Yeah, creativity is so fluid and can be expressed in so many different ways. Yeah.
Does your visual art inform your music in any way?
Not usually. They're usually pretty separate, which is kind of interesting. I usually think of like my art and my music as kind of two separate, like their own worlds. Yeah, they don't really come together very often. I've never really thought about that actually. But there's definitely like moments when I'll be drawing or doing art and, it kind of makes me think of a certain emotion or, and then I kind of think about, certain songs that would maybe go along with that. So like they can intertwine sometimes, but not super often. Yeah.
It's like kind of like, they're coming from the same brain, but they don't really play
Yeah,
together
yeah, they're
kind of
really
thing.
different. Yeah, yeah, and like sometimes when I'm doing a lot of music or I'm doing a lot of shows or writing a lot, then sometimes my art takes a back seat. Or sometimes when I'm not doing as much performing, then my art takes a bigger role. So it definitely changes, but it's both of them have always been very present in my life. I can't remember a time when I was not drawing, really.
Right. So even when you were a little kid, you were scribbling down doodles
All the
and stuff like
time. I
that.
used to do like comics and drawings, and I'd still do comics, and it's just nothing's really changed. It's still the same. Like I still do the same stuff.
I
Yeah.
think that's great,
Thank you. Yeah.
to have found really like your passion and been able to pursue
Yeah.
it.
Definitely,
your whole
especially animation, and like having that be a really big goal for me, and like really taking the steps to put effort towards that and like set time aside, because currently I'm applying a school project. I'm applying animation towards that so that I can kind of start intertwining my career goals with the projects that I'm required to do for class to kind of make it feel more like be more productive for my personal like artistic goals. So it's definitely been helpful to have time to set aside to work on that animation project and just build my skills and learn how to do it on my own. Yeah.
What's the scope of this project? Are you doing hand drawn stuff, or is it all on the computer?
Yeah,
Or?
so I have a tablet and I use Photoshop, and I didn't start working with animation on the program Animate, which doesn't make any sense. I started in Photoshop, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it's frame by frame, so it's second by second. So I am doing, it's all hand drawn on the tablet, and you have to, move it second by second and move whatever you want to move, or you can create a background layer to have some things be the same throughout the whole. It's such a learning process. Photoshop is so hard.
It sounds kind of tedious.
It
I'm
is
sure.
tedious,
Yeah.
but I love it so much. Yeah.
I think that's how you're doing the right thing.
Exactly.
If it like from the outside perspective, like it can be like boring or like tedious, but you were just like love it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I had a moment when I was really starting to get into it. It kind of began when I was working with storyboarding, and then I was like, if I didn't have to take breaks, I wouldn't. I would do this all day long. It felt like the thing where you find the thing that you want to do. It was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is the thing. Obviously music is one of those as well, but definitely finding my skills in animation and storytelling was like, okay, this synthesizes a lot of the skills that I have and a lot of the things that I can bring to the table. And that, like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
That's really cool. What are like the ultimate aspirations for that? Like, do you envision yourself working for a company like Pixar?
Oh,
or
yeah.
your
I
own
mean, it's
thing?
every artist's
Yeah.
and animator's dream to somehow get your foot in the door into that huge, huge institution. I did apply for a couple Disney internships as a storyboarder and visual development artist. Haven't heard back, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, definitely a goal I think would be to just work with character development, storyboarding, just like taking the script of a story and visualizing it, in a storyboard fashion. So kind of thinking about the characters and the camera movements and angles. But, I don't think it would necessarily have to be for Disney or Pixar. It could be, I don't know, it could be something different too. I just think that would be what I would want to be doing. Yeah.
It's high aspirations, but it's
Yeah.
really awesome.
Why not?
To hear about. Yeah.
Why not shoot for the best if you can?
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, and I haven't had the chance to see your visual art, but I mean, just based on your songs, like I'm sure it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like to think that it is.
Yeah. How is there a difference in the way that you would approach a visual art project, like versus a song? Or does it? I don't know. You said they're sort of compartmentalized for you. But
They actually, the processes are very different. A lot of the art pieces that I have been making have been for class, so I approach them in a really, I guess, structured way. So it's like, okay, so you start your brainstorming on your, thumbnails, little drawings, just to kind of visualize what you're going to do, and you develop that further. And then, you continue working, and, you make sure to set time aside to work on it. But for songwriting, a lot of it has been super organic for me. At least my process has been just for the last few years that I have been songwriting. I have tried to kind of approach it in a more structured way because sometimes it can be not as successful to just expect that a song will arrive all at once. And though that has been successful for me in the past, sometimes it's a lot to expect of a song. You're like, okay, it's got to be perfect, on the first go. But that's like a lot to expect. Yeah, so I've tried to kind of, especially with writing and lyrics, I'll write something and then kind of go back and edit and change it. I'm trying to allow myself to just maybe more progressively develop a song as I go, but it's kind of hard. Yeah.
So at least it sort of sounds like the visual art, right now at least, is kind of a more like structured, like repeatable process
definitely.
that you follow.
Yeah.
That is interesting. To go back a little bit to what you were saying, I do think that like creative people in general, or sometimes we kind of fool ourselves into thinking like inspiration just has to like strike us and like that's when we'll do it.
It's a lie. It's such a lie. It can work for some people in some like processes, but I think that if you really set time aside to work on something like you would anything, if you put effort towards it and like learning how to do it and working on it, then hopefully your process will be better and you can develop more skills, and it's just maybe a little bit kinder on yourself to be like, let's just work on it progressively as we go, Yeah.
So like it really is something you have to practice being
exactly.
creative.
Yeah. Like any instrument, like any art skill, like anything. You just have to work on it.
Yeah. But it is weird. There's like that disconnect. I feel like in creative people, but
yeah.
I think maybe part of it is that you don't want to break it down into this like purely like mechanistic sort of thing.
It's got to have a little bit of both.
Right.
Especially in songwriting, I think for me, I do a lot of like the melody and the lyrics together in terms of a certain mindset that I'm in. And sometimes when I'm doing it all at once, it helps me to be consistent so that I kind of write it all or get the melody down in one period so that I can kind of have one like emotion or mindset to go with it, because it's hard to come back to it and be like, place yourself back in that exact moment when you're feeling that specific way. So that can be difficult, but I think it's a good challenge to try and make it maybe more than just a blip in time and more of a cohesive developing thing.
Yeah, it's interesting trying to capture different segments in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Songwriting like that.
That's the ultimate songwriters. That's what we do.
Right. Yeah, it really is what it is. And I think it even transcends up to like the album. You can really some bands, they just have like each album is such a different snapshot in their lives.
Definitely.
Yeah. But I guess maybe there's some projects that really do try to just capture like one emotion.
Definitely.
But maybe there's some like meta things that you can kind of revisit, like different experiences in your life you can pull from, and they don't necessarily require you to take that just instantaneous sort of look at them.
Definitely. Yeah.
So speaking of albums and recording and stuff like that, do you have anything like that in the works?
I have a big thing in the works.
Oh,
yes.
yeah?
I'm currently working on an album with Ruben, which is very exciting. I'm planning on doing, I think, a 9 or 10 song album, hopefully released later this spring. So that's definitely been going. I have a lot of material that I've been working on for many years, and it's really exciting to be like, oh, finally I can like put this out there and see what people think and see if they like it, and hopefully, I can add a little bit of extra joy to the world. That sounds so cheesy, but why? I mean, it's nice, right? It could be. Yeah, I'm really excited to put that out there soon. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, I'm excited for sure. And for those who don't know, Ruben Gomez is his last name, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Ruben Gomez. He's a really nice guy. He's an audio engineer around town. He works with all the bands and stuff.
Excellent leader of the community.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And also, like I said, just like the nicest guy in the world. He like hosts concerts and stuff at Mallard and all that stuff. Well, that's super cool. How do you said you have a lot of material. Are you paring it down to fit an album?
Yeah, a little bit. When I say I have a lot of material, I guess I'm talking about like all of the songs that I've but not all of the ones that I've written I feel still apply to me anymore. It's like when you look back on old pieces or old songs you wrote, you're like, oh, I don't really relate to that anymore.
Like an old diary entry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're like, this is kind of cringy, but like it kind of makes me who I am now, so it's important. But I'm definitely pulling, I would say, like newer material probably from like the last year or so into this album. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it's just more current.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
Very cool. So you said 9 or 10 songs. How many do you have total? I'm just curious.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I have a number, because there's bits and pieces that I'll write like in the voice memos. I'll like write down something like on a random like piece of notebook paper, and then I'll like record it, and then I'll totally forget about it. So there's several songs that I have written that I that have faded into oblivion. I don't know. I would say maybe like 20. Okay. I have no idea. That's a very not accurate estimate.
Right. I mean, that's cool. I think it's always better to have like a large supply of material to cut from rather than to try to like squeeze it into one project. Or
I think that's why I'm ready to release an album, because I don't feel like I have to force material out. I feel like I'm ready to gather the things that I have and put it out into the world.
Yeah. And does it feel like sort of, I guess, like obvious to you what should be on the project? You know what I mean?
Actually, no, it's taken some thinking for me, because I've never released an album or anything like that before. So it's definitely taking some, okay, so what would be nice as a single? What would be nice as an EP? And then we're going to put everything on the album. So it's going to be a few step process, I think, for the releasing. But yeah, I've definitely had to think about what would pair well for like a 2-song EP, or what would be really strong and what would carry its own for a single. So it's definitely taken some thinking. Ruben and I have done a lot of brainstorming.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's interesting how you do have to take a different approach for a single versus like a EP, like you're saying, or an album.
Definitely.
It's weird. Things have, especially for singles, like they have to stand on their own in a way that they can't in the context of an album.
It's kind of vulnerable to be like, one song has to be this whole thing. Yeah. And especially to get the ball rolling, like as the first, because that's what I'm planning to do, is just release a couple singles first. So just to get things going. Yeah.
That makes sense though. I mean, it doesn't really, it's kind of weird to try to like get an audience by just like putting an album out there and be like, listen to this.
Here, it's a lot. I think it's smart to kind of take it bit by bit so that people can kind of get to know your music a little bit, kind of see what you're about, what your songwriting is like, especially for like a singer-songwriter. And then you can kind of release an album that has everything that you've previously released all together, so that they can access that, instead of just giving them this huge chunk of music. Be like, listen to all of it, please.
That's like kind of overwhelming, I think.
It is, yeah. I mean, even for myself, when I'm given an entire album to listen to, I rarely, listen to the whole thing all at once, at least for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And especially if it doesn't like catch your ear right away.
Right. That's the trick. You got to have a hook, which is a single, which can be a single.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to ask you. I feel like we've really touched a lot of cool bases.
Definitely.
Is there any like shows you want to plug or anything like that? I know you haven't done much live stuff.
Honestly, no. I don't have anything coming up, but I'm sure there will be more stuff in the works really soon. Yeah.
Well, great. I'm excited to see what you do.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's been great talking to you. I'm really excited to see you perform.
Yeah.
And,
Yay.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Peace out.
She's never rested a day in her life. Her mama was a bird and her daddy was a knife. She's sharp and smooth and free all in one. She's timid yet brave, she'll get the job done.